It's important for a coach to have confidence in his players. If you have a press conference and you say that you have a good quarterback, and that he's been playing well in practice and whatnot, and that you believe in his ability going forward, nobody's going to bat an eye. That's generic coach speak, and it gets the job done. But the moment you start throwing out specific names, that's when you start to raise eyeballs, and all of a sudden, the weight of the world is being placed on your quarterback's shoulders. As an example, if Zach Taylor said right now that Joe Burrow was going to be a good quarterback in this league, that's a good statement that instills confidence in Burrow without giving anyone any bulletin board material. But if Zach Taylor said that Joe Burrow was going to be the next Peyton Manning, holy cow, you just put a lot of unnecessary pressure on your rookie. Well, one coach thought this would be a good idea, and he failed miserably. This is the story of the time that a head coach compared his incoming quarterback to the greatest quarterback of all time, and it didn't work out. The year is 1967, and the New Orleans Saints are entering the NFL. This is their inaugural season. After lobbying for a team throughout the 1960s, the city of New Orleans finally has one. And now the Saints, who are starting from scratch, need to fill out their roster. Obviously, you need a quarterback. There were definitely options in the NFL draft, as it's not like this was a quarterback-depleted class a la 2013. You had Heisman Trophy winner Steve Spurrier out of Florida, and Sammy Baugh Trophy winner Bob Greasy out of Purdue. And you have the number 1 pick in the draft, so you'll get your pick. Instead, what the Saints decided to do was trade that pick for a veteran. And so they looked to the Baltimore Colts, who seemed as though they had a quarterback waiting in the wings in Gary Cuozzo. He served as the backup to Johnny Unitas from 1963 to 66, and was in line to be the successor. The only problem? Johnny Unitas, even though he was in his mid-30s, was showing no signs of slowing down. In the 4 seasons that Cuozzo backed him up, Unitas made it to 3 Pro Bowls and received 2 first-team All-Pro nominations. And Unitas wasn't planning on calling it quits anytime soon. After the 1966 season, when Cuozzo asked Unitas how long he was planning on playing, Unitas said, "I'll play as long as I can." After hearing those words, Cuozzo asked for a trade. In his 4 seasons with the Colts, Cuozzo received some playing time. While his numbers were by no means spectacular, they weren't bad. In those 4 seasons, he completed 50.5% of his passes and threw 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. If you extrapolate those numbers over a full season, he's right around the league average. Cuozzo is a weird player, because in those 4 seasons he didn't have any great games, except for an insane outlier 1965 game against the Vikings, where he threw 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. New Orleans saw potential in him, and maybe they didn't feel comfortable throwing a rookie into the fire. So they made a trade with the Colts, giving up the first overall pick in the draft for Cuozzo. More than 50 years later, I can safely say that this was a bad move. The Colts were fine at quarterback for a while after this with Unitas and Earl Morrall, and with that first pick they drafted 2-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Bubba Smith. But now the Saints had their quarterback at least. Gary Cuozzo was going to be the man leading the charge. And head coach Tom Fears decided to go full speed ahead on the hype train. During the preseason, Fears praised Cuozzo maybe a bit too much, saying if you put him in a number 19 jersey, stoop his shoulders a bit, and put those high-top shoes on him, you'd swear that Unitas was having a pretty good day. Cuozzo had started 3 games in his career, and now his coach was saying he was just as good as Johnny Unitas, regarded by this point as arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. There's praising your quarterback and having confidence in him, and then saying there's no difference between he and Unitas. With the weight of the world on his shoulders now, he played like garbage. In 10 starts, Cuozzo went 3-7, and one of those wins has a giant asterisk next to it, because in a 30-14 victory against Washington, he completed 3 passes for 17 yards. He finished his season with 7 touchdowns and 12 picks. In his revenge game against the Colts, he threw no touchdowns and 3 picks in a 30-10 loss. And he finished 17th in touchdown passes. There were 16 teams in the NFL. He got traded to the Vikings after 1 season with New Orleans. Spoiler alert, but by the time he finished his career in 1972, nobody was comparing him to Johnny Unitas. Let the example of Gary Cuozzo serve as a lesson to coaches. Don't put unnecessary pressure on your quarterback by comparing him to an all-time great. It's not going to work out that way, because Gary Cuozzo is no Johnny Unitas. Special thanks to all our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a Patreon and request future video topics in the description below.